Thank you very much for joining. I believe that you come from a different part of Indonesia and also from different parts of the world. Now, in these sessions, we are going to discuss about speaking skills. Sorry. What makes our students speak? What can boost their confidence to speak? Yeah, and to do that, there will be two speakers from two different parts of the world that will help us to ignite the discussions. Okay, so let me introduce you to them. Okay, so the first one, we've got Liz, Elizabeth O'Sullivan. She's from Australia. She currently teaches in Thailand, right, Liz?
Yes.
Okay, so Liz is a primary school teacher from Australia, and she has a TESOL certified English language teacher. She is a TESOL certified English language teacher, and she lived and worked in London, in Canada, in South America, and also teach there. And she's also a volunteer English language teacher and a mentor in North Thailand with Palms, Australia. Okay, thank you for joining us, Liz.
Thanks.
All right, and we also have Moe Sandar Kyaw from Myanmar. Hello, Moe.
Hi, teacher.
Thank you for joining us. Now, Moe is a co-founder and a program coordinator of a youth program called AELC, which is Active English Language Center, and MLB. And she has a degree in English language, and she's also a volunteer teacher at Teach Asian Organizations. Okay, so they are all our speakers for today. Now, to allow you to get the most benefit of the sessions, there are some facilitators in our in the sessions. We have Adam Afriksal Sinuraya from Indonesia. He is a civil servant and he is an English language teacher and also a volunteer teacher with Muda Mengajar and with My English Club, which is the host institutions of this event. Now, and also myself, Leviana Vinanda, you can call me Levi. I'm the founder of My English Club, and I'm a co-founder of Hat and Hoodie English Course and Life Club based in Balikpapan in Indonesia. And I'm also a student in a master degree in ELT with the University of Southampton in UK. And we also have Rich Buckley from the UK. Hello, Rich.
Hello.
He's a guidance counselor at the University of Wales, Trinity St. David in the UK, and he taught with the British Councils and at the university level. Okay, now, before we move on, please allow me to introduce you to the host institutions of this event and also to give you some overview of this program named Teachers Talk. So the host institutions is My English Club, which is a non-profit social movement dedicated for English language teacher in general and in particular volunteer teachers. This institution based in Balikpapan, Indonesia. We also provide the discussion forums like this one and also some teaching workshop. And the other institutions called Bangun Tunas Cerdas Indonesia Foundations is an Indonesian foundation concerning education and sustainable development goals in general. Yeah, okay, so that's us. Now, I would like to introduce you to this event, Teachers Talk. This is a very special. In 2021, we start Teachers of the World. Yeah, so it is a regular sharing sessions and discussions which is aimed to promote reflective practice and also peer discussions between English teachers. And it is usually be held on the second or the fourth week of the month from April to September 2021. All right, now, code of conduct to ensure that everybody will experience the best and get the best benefit from this event. Please use your real name on the display name, and please remain mute throughout the sessions. And you are welcome to participate during the discussion time. And you can give us questions or feedback and it can be live or on chat, and you can speak in English or in Indonesian. If you're Indonesian teachers, yeah, we can help you to translate it to the speakers. And if you wish, you can also join if you wish to join the discussion live, you can click on the raise hand button during the questions and answer sessions. And please turn on your video throughout the event or whenever possible. And finally, to get the best experience, please use the speaker view. Now, the last thing is the sessions is recorded, and we're going to put the recording on YouTube in our channel, so you can always visit this recording whenever you like. All right. Here we go, the rundown. We are here in the opening and introduction, and it will be followed by the first speaker, which is Liz for 15 minutes, and then Moe for the next 15 minutes. And then we will have the discussions for 25 minutes, and Richard will give us some pedagogical overview at the end of the sessions for 15 minutes, and finally, closing and photo sessions. Okay, teachers, creating confidence English speakers. That's our sessions today. Our topic today. And let's start. I would like to allow Liz to start your presentations. Please, Liz, time is yours. Liz, you are mute.
Sorry, I'll just get the screen sharing started.
All right.
Sorry.
That's all right. Go on.
Apologies, I just lost the lost the tab.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So welcome everyone. It's nice for you all to see you all here. Like Levi said, I am in Thailand at the moment. I am teaching in schools. I'm teaching in villages. I'm teaching small groups in boarding houses and all over. And the one thing I've noticed about the students here is that they really do like a lot of confidence with their speaking. And I've had to do a lot to try and encourage them. It's not really part of the culture here, particularly in the schools. The students are very quiet and obedient, and they're not encouraged to speak a lot. There's a lot of sort of rote learning and copying off the board and mimicking the teacher, call and response, but not a lot of generating conversation. So that is something I have been trying to help the students here with. So we'll have a look at why English learners lack confidence. And some of the reasons might be performance anxiety, fear of making mistakes. They might be embarrassed in front of their peers. This is particularly relevant, I think, for teenagers. I have found particularly the teenagers here are very reluctant to speak. They don't want to lose face in front of their friends if they make a mistake, and it's embarrassing for them sometimes. They might just not be motivated or engaged in the activity. The speaking task given might not be at the right level. It might be too hard for them. And they just, they clam up. They think, oh, this is too difficult. I can't do this. And there's a lot of difficulty when students have not many opportunities to practice speaking outside of the classroom. And particularly when students are learning English in a non-English speaking country where that's not the first language, there might not be many opportunities for them to practice. So they're not confident, they're not comfortable speaking because they might only speak English in that 45-minute session and that's it. So what can we do as teachers to help them improve? Well, number one, I would say, is relationships. It's really important to develop a good relationship with your students. And sometimes to ease the tension, you need to be a bit more informal with the students so they feel a bit more comfortable speaking. Having that relationship where it's always the strict teacher and the obedient student doesn't always lend itself well to encouraging speaking. So sometimes you have to think about how you can best get to know your students so they feel comfortable speaking. That's just me with some of the Year 6 students at one of the schools. So keep it fun as much as you can. You know, playing games can help them feel engaged and they are enjoying it. They're not thinking about making mistakes speaking when they are playing and having fun. I use music a lot as well and get the students to practice singing. And through singing, they can help improve their speaking skills as well when they, you know, they're learning some new lyrics or learning some vocabulary. Sometimes they are more confident singing the words instead of saying them. So I find that works with my students. Another thing is to work in small groups or pairs. I think even for native English speakers, it can, or even for people speaking their mother tongue, I should say, it can be daunting to get up and speak in front of a group to present something. So for people who are speaking English as their second, third, fourth language, to be speaking in front of a group can be very nerve-wracking. So allowing students to choose their groups sometimes and work in pairs or small groups can just help them build their confidence and alleviate that anxiety they might have about speaking in front of a big group. And a strategy I use sometimes is, it's a common strategy actually, is think, pair, share. If you are doing a brainstorming session, for example, you might let the students take some time to think, maybe write down their answer, go with a partner and share their ideas before they share it with the group. It just allows them that extra time and extra practice with a familiar person. Okay, so thinking time is also very important. In fact, there's a lot of research that says allowing students thinking time before they speak is beneficial. So at least 30 seconds, if not more, to let them come up with the answer before they say it. And like I said before, they might want to write it down before they share it with the class. And patience is very important. You've just got to give kids that extra time, especially if they are reluctant and they lack the confidence. Repetition is very important. And for students who are not confident speakers, they might feel more comfortable using speaking skills if they are talking about something they are familiar with, or if they are using vocabulary they are familiar with. And I think for teachers sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, sometimes we think, oh, I've taught that. We don't need to cover that again. The students know that. Or you might have pressure from your school, your organisation, to cover certain topics within a certain amount of time. But when it comes to speaking, students may have learnt that topic, but they might not really know it. And particularly, they might not be able to use it when they are speaking, or use that grammar rule, or use that part of vocabulary when they are taking part in a conversation. So yeah, start with familiar topics, find different creative ways to review the topics that you have already taught again to help them feel comfortable with their speaking. So this is a big one, and I understand this very well. Mistakes are okay. And I am learning Thai at the moment, and also Karen, and I am very bad. I would say I shouldn't say that when we're talking about being confident speakers, but I am learning. I am not a fluent speaker by any means. So when I am teaching, I make mistakes all the time when I'm trying to translate to their language or use their native language. And it's really good, actually, I think, to show them that mistakes are okay. And they laugh. It breaks the ice, it breaks the tension. Oh, if the teacher can make mistakes, maybe it's okay for me to make mistakes. The other day, I was trying to tell the students, students shouldn't be lazy, they should try their hardest. But I used the word ugly instead of lazy because it's a bit similar in Thai. And so I said, students, you should not be ugly in class. And they thought it was hilarious, and they laughed and laughed. And it's really good because it just helps them feel a little less nervous, and they feel okay about making mistakes. And I think for teachers, sharing your learning journey when you've made mistakes, learning English or learning any language or learning something, they can connect with you better, I think, when they know, the teacher's not perfect. Maybe it's okay if I'm not perfect. And if they are making errors when they're speaking, I find it's really important not to interrupt them and correct every error. Sometimes if it is impeding their communication, you might want to come back to that error at a later time and reteach that topic to help them. But if you're stopping them when they're trying to speak and they're reluctant speakers, that's just going to make them feel less confident about speaking. So let the errors go sometimes. That's me trying to learn Thai with some of my students who are also learning Thai because it's their second language. Okay, so another important factor when teaching speaking is to use purposeful practice. Students need to understand why they are doing this task, and it needs to be relevant to them. So here are some examples. They might learn to introduce themselves to an English speaker. That's something I'm doing with my students at the moment because they are still struggling. They are beginners. They are still struggling with what is your favourite food and where do you live. So that is something I'm teaching my students here. They might want to make a video about their country to share. Could be a little project. If it's relevant, maybe they want to practice job interviews. Also, if it's relevant, they might do the speaking component of certain tests, if that's what they're working towards. They might want to make a map of their school or their town. So if an English-speaking visitor came to visit, they could describe where to go using the map. They might describe how to cook a local dish. And if it's appropriate for your students, they might like to make a TikTok or a YouTube. Obviously, you have to consider things like child safety regulations and being safe on the internet, and if that's okay with your school or your student to share that kind of thing and with their parents. So you check those regulations and check that it's safe to do so. Okay, so encourage them to practice their speaking in their free time. This can be a difficult one sometimes, depending on who they can practice with. But if you give them meaningful homework tasks that involve speaking practice, that can be really helpful, I think. If schools are open where you are, students can practice with their peers and with teachers. At one school I was at, one of the teachers gave a task to the students with a list of questions, basic questions. They had to go around to each teacher and ask each teacher a different question, and the teacher had to sign that they'd asked that question and the teacher had answered. So it was a really practical task where they had to use their speaking skills, and it was, you know, relevant because they were getting real information from the teachers. If they are not able to practice speaking with someone in their house or at their school, they might find a friend online to practice with. If they cannot do that, they can still practice on their own. They might want to record themselves speaking and listen back and see, oh, did I make any mistakes? Does that sound right? Then they can send it to the teacher for more feedback. So that's a way if they don't have someone to practice with at home or at school. There's ways around that. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some ideas and teaching materials that I think can be helpful for your students. You can use this face-to-face in the classroom, but I think many of these ideas you can adapt to use online as well. So give me 5. This is a good warm-up task I like to do with my students. They have 1 minute to say 5 things. It's just a little icebreaker. Would you rather this or this? Do you prefer this or this? Just little conversation cards. A board game to encourage them to talk about themselves. This is a game that I use where they cut out I cut out the questions, I put it in a hat, and the students take turns in a circle picking out a question, and they have to ask someone in the group this question, and they've got a list of vocabulary as well to help them. So you could adapt that and do a similar thing online by just giving different students different questions to ask. And just introducing yourself, a little all about me sheet. I've been doing a lot with my students. Some basic questions. But wait, there's more. So this is using grammar tenses. You might cut out these cards and get the students to tell a story about what happened to the boy. They have put it in order. They have to use simple past tense. We've got simple future tense. What will happen next? They can describe the picture, predict. This one I use with present continuous tense. What is happening in the picture? And they also have fun with it. It's a bit like a Where's Wally? They have to find the characters in the picture and yeah, describe what's happening, and you can add more by giving them particular questions they have to answer about the picture. And this is just a general activity where they cut out the cards and they make a sentence Last night I played football. Next year I will go camping with my family. Things like that. Okay, and these are just a few other games and resources, just some different ideas. Like I said before, I like to use songs a lot. My students love singing, so that's something I try to use to encourage them. You've got Pictionary, Hangman, charades, where they can blurt out the answer. I actually encourage my students to call out in class because they're so shy that when we play these games and call out, they get excited and it helps them with their confidence. Memory games, like you put objects on a table, they have to say what the objects are. You cover it with a blanket and they have to remember what it is. You can do what am I guessing games where you give them clues and they must guess what the picture is. I am yellow, I am in the sky, I am hot. What am I? They call out the sun. Huh? So they have to, yeah. Different role plays, you can use role plays in many different ways, using many different situations. I did a fashion parade with my students. They were learning to describe clothing and appearance. And after I taught those topics, the students became models, and I had some students had to announce the models and describe what they were wearing. So that was really fun. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you now is a video of some of my students practicing their speaking. You'll notice that they're not perfect, but I was really proud of what they've done. So, and it might give you some ideas of things you can do with your students.
How old are you? I am 16 years old. Where do you come from? I come from Who is in your family? I have father, mother, and me. What do you want to do when you finish school? I want to be a teacher. And you? I want to be a tour guide. Your favorite subject at school? I like English. What is your favorite hobby? I like cooking.
How old are you?
I am 50 years old.
Where do you come from?
I am from Thailand.
What is your favorite sport?
I like badminton, and you? I like volleyball, and you? I like volleyball, and you?
I like football.
Myself, hi, my name is Khonpan Dunamshinakul. I come from Thailand. I am 18 years old. In my family, I have my mother, my father, 2 older sisters, 1 younger sister, and me. I have long wavy black hair. I like color black. I like to play basketball. My favorite subject is math. I am wearing a gray shirt. I am wearing a black trousers. I have brown eyes. I want to be a nurse. Thank you.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
I like watching movies. Guys, do you like chocolate?
Yes, I like it. What is your favorite sport?
My favorite sport is volleyball.
Okay, that's the end. Thank you.
Okay, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing us, Liz. Okay, so there are some notes that I made during the Liz's presentations that it is very important to know your students. So you can use that for the speaking materials actually. So by using their interests and their needs, you can use that for speaking materials. And I also like the point you made about sharing your learning journey. I remember at session 3, I think, one of the speaker, Marina from Spain, she also emphasized the importance of being authentic as a teacher, to be human actually, to be humany. So that can build a good rapport, I think, with the students, to build a good relationships. And one more point that I like is that you can actually teach grammar while you are teaching speaking. So maybe use the constructed dialogue just like you did, Liz. Yeah. So we can actually teaching grammar while we are teaching speaking. That is very interesting. Okay, thank you very much. Now, the second speakers will also share us about how to boost the students' confidence, and at the same time also how to boost our own confidence as a teacher, especially if you're not a native speaker like Liz. Okay, now Moe, the time is yours. I will help you for the screen sharing.
Okay. Okay, so sorry for that if I'm interrupted because I have a call.
Oh.
So, yeah. So hello guys, hello teachers from different parts of the world. I am Moe from Myanmar and I have been teaching for over 2 years. Today I want to share some 5 strategies that we can use to boost our student confidence. So before we look at this strategy, so let's look at what's confidence for us. According to Cambridge Dictionary, confidence is the quality of being certain of our abilities or having trust in future or our plans. So, and then why student confidence is so important? So teacher, could you repeat me slightly? Okay. So we have already known that student confidence is one of the important factors in the educational process and that the greater gift that we can give to the student. So it's important for students to be confident because if they don't, like they simply don't learn as fast or gain the fluency they need. So today I like to look at some 5 strategies that we can do to increase their speaking confidence. Okay, so my first one is that teacher, can you move to the next slide, please? So the first one is that don't correct them as much in speaking activities. Like it's crucial to correct student mistakes, but what if you correct every word a student says? So when student makes too many mistakes, we will not correct them. We will correct every single one. Then their confidence will suffer. Instead of making too many corrections, so and when you are targeted practice, try not to interrupt or correct as much. Sometimes it is better for students to let go of their intuition and trying to speak English. And the second one is the praise their effort. Okay. Next, please. Okay, praise their effort. The other problem with correction is that sometimes what we do is tell them what they did wrong and forget to do what they did great. Even though you're telling them what they did wrong, gives you a more positive message by hearing what they did right said. So praise your student for what they did well by using words and phrases like good job or brilliant or you did a great job or whatever you want. That will be helpful to study their English. The third one is that, and instead of habit and repetition. We teacher already mentioned about it. Okay, so could you move to the next slide, please? The part one. Yeah, by encouraging your students to practice their English and rapid speed, they will so familiar with the language that they can speak with it with increased confidence. So a great place to start is by teaching them essential phrases like, could you speak more slowly? Another language China or have a nice day. If they constantly repeat these days, they will think enough become like better and they don't have to hesitate at all. And then they will definitely can learn English with confidence. Then the fourth one is that use visuals. So flashcards, poster, and photographs like stimulate learner and help them to struggling to find a word. Sorry for that. For example, if a student had been asked to tell a story to the class, I was sure they will feel more confident if they had the picture that they can follow along with. Visual items can also help learners like start conversation with confidence and also add to their vocabulary. Okay, so the last one, could you move to the last one, please? Not this one, I have already said it. The last one. Okay, the fifth one, please, number 5. Okay, so the last one is super important for me and that I always do it. Greet every student with a smile and say his or her name. According to our report, greeting a student with a smile as well a positive message brings benefits for both students and teachers. I set up when I arrive in my school, I stay in the doorway and then wait for students, greet with a smile and ask them how they are doing. So later on, they are so familiar with me. That affected strategy to build their confidence to sit with me, because when they see your smile on your face, they will surely be more confident to speak with you freely in order to improve their speaking skills. Yep, to draw the conclusion, the big 5 strategies that I mentioned that I constantly use in my classroom to boost my students. So thank you for your time. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you, our teacher.
Okay, thank you very much, Mo. So some points that I got from Mo's presentation is that you also emphasize more the importance of building the good relationship or the rapport with the students. Yeah. So just like with Liz, yes. It is very important that we can that we encourage and boost the students' confidence while we're teaching speaking by firstly building a good relationship with them.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. And I also like the way you said about the teaching useful phrases, the essential phrases. I think it is very important to teach them some the pre-verb chunks or the sentences that is ready to use, that they can always recycle in the different situation, like my favorite is, it's kind of the prefab chunks that we can also teach to the students. And lastly, this is a very important part that I got from you, Mo, that is, do not correct every learner's error. I think it is very important not to keep interrupting. Wait a second, you did wrong pronunciations. Wait a second, this is not a good grammar and so on. Maybe it is good to delay the corrections. Yeah, I try to do that too, actually. Try to delay the corrections and discuss it after the speaking session. Okay, thank you so much, Moe and Liz, for the presentations. That was the flash presentations from our two speakers. And this is the time for the discussions. All right, so I got one question here already from Ibu Roswita Abu. Thank you very much. She chatted on the chat of facing pandemic situation that urge us to do online teaching and learning. Can we make use teaching resources from, let's say, ISL, English Club, or BBC Learning English? Now, I think it's the question for both of the speakers, according to your own experience. Do you do that while you're teaching online, for example? Let's start from Liz, perhaps. Would you like to?
Yes, personally, I haven't done a lot of teaching online. My situation has been face-to-face, but I have thought about how to use the materials in different ways. And I think many of the things you do in the classroom, you can adapt to use. So I use ISL Collective and BBC all the time to find materials and resources. And yeah, so I think definitely find what works for your students is the main thing, and cater it to your students. Speaking maybe more challenging in an online setting where you don't have that face-to-face, but I guess you can use things like breakout rooms to monitor them and just find ways to engage like that. But yeah, use whatever materials works, I guess, for you.
Yes, exactly. I mean, most of the resources that we can use during this pandemic is, I mean, provided free in different resources, as it mentions by Ibu Roswita. There is actually, we usually have two versions, you know, the print out or like the online part, or at least you can use the video that is provided there. You can, like, for example, on Zoom and also on Google Meet or Teams, I think you can screen share like we did today, right? So you can always share your screen to your students, the video, the audio. So I think if we really understand the technology, right? So it doesn't really matter. So maybe the one point is that we can also have to understand the technology. Okay. What do you think, Mo? Do you have any experience using online resources?
Yes. When the pandemic started, I have been teaching online. So as well, I haven't got any idea how can I teach online classes. So, and I watch videos from YouTube a lot. I especially like something in order to be fun for them. But and then I have already downloaded from lesson plans from the City Council website, and it's really useful for me. And I apply in my online classes, and then for speaking part is pretty difficult for me. I didn't know how to take it. So, and later on, what I did is I divided small group 2 or 3 breakout rooms, and then I put just 2 students, at least 2 students, put in each breakout room and check every room by room, and then that I give at least 5 minutes or 10 minutes to practice each other. So in that time, I would disturb anymore. You have to keep practicing themselves. Just what I do is just really learning English with a concept and video. These are really useful for me.
Right. Yeah, the use of breakout room is actually a very good feature. Yeah, so you can enable the peer learning by putting your students in the breakout room. I found it really useful because sometimes the students feel so nervous, you know, when there is a teacher around. So when you put them when you are away, sometimes they can't really speak more fluent rather than if you were around sometimes. Okay. All right. Thank you for the questions, Ibu Roswita. Or maybe you would like to share your own experience, Ibu Roswita. Do you have any experience using online resources, and which resources that you find really useful for teaching speaking?
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit well, my voice is maybe will not receive there, but I will try to share my experience.
Yes.
Well, actually, I'm using ISL very much for the resources, but for speaking activity, instead of putting the students into a break room through the online platforms such as maybe, let's say, Google Classroom or Zoom, and sometimes when they interact to each other, it is really like because they're distant from one another, so it's quite difficult. But I put them into group, and I choose the spot that they have to express themselves. Let's say maybe 2 or 3 people, and they have to record. They have to record the activity. Let's say the topic is about tourism, and they have to explain about something. Let's say a tourism spot, and then they have to produce like a conversation and put it into a very good video, and also a very good, the quality of the voices, and then they put into the YouTube. So yeah, and then I will evaluate their performance by watching their video, and because I'm saying that your grading will be evaluated through your fluency or accuracy, and also your performance and the solidity between or among the participant. So they put a very good effort in that. So that's a very good experience for me as a teacher, and while evaluating them and using a video to enhance their speaking. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, that's a wonderful tip actually. And I think one good thing about recording yourself on the video is that the students can actually prepare themselves first, right? Just like what Liz said, that it could be useful to give them some time to prepare themselves. They can prepare the script first, so they will have time to practice it first before they really record themselves and post it on YouTube. Wow. Right, thank you so much. Now, we've got more questions and feedback from, wow, this one is long. Okay, wait a second. From Ayumi first, let's say. She's agreed with Liz that we can teach speaking and grammar at the same time. She teaches speaking for adults by using imitation technique. I gave them native speaker of English audio, like airport announcer, and asked them to imitate, which can fix the fluency, pronunciations, the grammar. And she's usually using EnglishClub.com and the YouTube of MMM English. I never used that, EnglishClub.com. I might want to check it after this. Thank you, Ayumi. Okay, other questions here from Fifin. Okay, Miss Liz or Miss Mo, would you like to give us the alternative of method or technique to improve speaking skill for our tuti during this pandemic? The method that I did right now, just recording their speaking by voice note or making video while speaking. Do you use other technique, other method or the procedure in your context, Liz and Mo? Yes, Liz. Go ahead, Liz.
I think the video technique for online is effective. I think if you are doing a speaking assessment I was talking before in my presentation about giving them a purpose. So if you give them a set task to prepare for example, I did with one group, they had to present about Thailand, and they had to make a video, and it was part of their assessment at school to answer the question. We spent a long time practicing. They needed a lot of preparation time. But then the end result was a polished video that we were going to share with people in Australia, was the purpose. Unfortunately, with COVID, I didn't get to finish it in time, but the idea was there, and I think it would work if I had more time to finish it. So you think about the purpose of your speaking task. Is it going to be a polished presentation where they're presenting a certain topic, or is it just practicing simple conversation? You might have a checklist of questions and see if they can answer, can they introduce themselves confidently, and then you can give them the feedback right there and then, even, is another way to do it if it's just a quick thing like that. Yeah, so I think letting them know beforehand what it is you're testing them on is good, to give them time to prepare if you need that. That would be one thing I would add to that. Give them a criteria sheet or a checklist if it's appropriate for your age group, and say, okay, well, next lesson we will do this test on, can you say your favorite things? You must practice this and I will test you next week. So yeah, that is, I hope that helps. That's just some little things maybe that would be helpful.
Yes, indeed. I mean, you can even send away the worksheet, right, to the student's house, so you can still do the checklist questions or something like that you usually do face-to-face in the online platform. By in the beginning you send it first to the students. Okay, and Moe, what about you? Do you have any experience using or do you have any other techniques perhaps?
Maybe I am with the same details. But in order to introduce students independently, what can we do is, like I said before, when we are teaching, we can make small groups, like two or three backgrounds, and put them in each group. And then another one is what I always constantly do is like presentation. I give them a topic, I provide 2 or 3 groups and give them a topic, and I give them at least 2 or 3 days to prepare it. After that, when I start again, they have to present group by group. I introduce one of the strategies to introduce speaking. Another one, I really into debating. So that's what I always do with my students. And I said, I give a topic and prepare it 2 or 3 days, and they have to make debate with group by group. That's what I always do. But sometimes I give them as a homework, like to take a record video or when they are speaking. But from my point of view, it's not useful for me, because they can write, when I give them homework, they can write down whatever they want to see in this video. And sorry if I record your video. It's not okay for me. Yeah, this one I really.
Okay, thank you, Mo. And also, I just a small tip. So I also use this wordwall.net, if you are familiar with that. So we can actually make the topic card, the clue card, just like Liz show us on the presentation. You know, like tell me about your hobby and something like that. But you can make it in the word wall. So by doing so, then you can actually do that in an online platform. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Okay, thank you very much for sharing. And also, oh, there's also one tip from one of the participants here, from Ayumi. And for kids, she used dubbing through the picture or video. The source, Khan Academy Kids apps. Oh, I have to try this one. Never used this. Wordwall, okay, and also twinkle.com. Dubbing. Okay, it sounds interesting. So maybe something like, would you like to explain more about this, Miss Ayumi, perhaps? How do you actually use this dubbing?
Okay, so in Khan Academy Kids, there's a lot of like for children, and that books that for sure the pictures is so interesting, and then I will read for them because they can't actually read the sentence because they are already just about 4 until 5 years old, and then I read. After that, I tell them, can you see the picture? What do you see in the picture? Okay, let's you be the duck and I be the monkey, for example. And then, hi duck, this and that. But for the dubbing, somehow we can use also the video. For example, a scene of Frozen, and we play the list, the playlist, and then after that we repeat and repeat. After they can also do that. After they can also make conversation exactly the same in that short scene. Okay, so we do like that here.
Very interesting. Yes, sorry, go on.
For the imitation technique, I was getting the feedback from some students. They say that imitation technique is very fun because you can like make their sound like the native speaker. So I asked them, okay, your job is to make your voice similar to what you hear. So they make imitation technique exactly the same with the native speaker. For example, from the advertisement or iPort announcer and so on. So I hope that it can be used also for the other teachers. That's really fun. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ayumi. Just one quick question. What kind of which accent that your student like the most?
They actually like American accent because they say British accent is like a bit a bit difficult to imitate. But yeah, sometimes also I give them like a video from British, so they can also recognize the British accent as well. But all my students are actually for the basic speaking class. I just want this imitation technique become like one of their motivation, because I can see like most of students, when I give them imitation technique or dubbing, they are more motivated than if I just ask them to have a conversation by themselves. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry, Rich. It seems like British accent is not that popular. Oops.
In Indonesia, maybe.
In Indonesia, well, yeah. And by the way, if you're interested for everyone to listen to other dialects or the accents of the English speakers from around the world, you might want to check out this website. I will put it there. It is called Dialect Archives, if I'm not mistaken, .org. I will check that again. I will put it in the WhatsApp group. So in that Dialect Archives, there are the recordings of the way people around the world speaking English. I like to use it with my students. So, you know, it's fun to guess the origin of the people according to their accent, for example, and also to get them familiar with the varieties of English spoken around the world. Okay, thank you very much. Now, wow, time flies. Now, I think that's the end of our question and answer, the discussion sessions. Now it's time for us to listen to some of the pedagogical overview from Richard. Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much for your presentations, Liz and Moe. That was really interesting to listen to. We covered a lot of different ground there between them. So thank you for your presentations. Moe made a very important point, which is confidence is linked to success in language learning. The evidence, research evidence, shows this very strongly. However, research evidence is less clear on what confidence actually is. What both presentations from Liz and Moe suggested, and I agree with this, is that when you build confidence, there are two things you're doing. You're trying to bring, I put this in the messages, you're trying to bring anxiety down and you're trying to bring motivation up. Are motivation and confidence connected? Yes, they are. It may not seem obvious, but they are connected. Confidence, in many ways, is a reflection of how motivated someone feels to achieve realistic goals. So confidence and motivation are very strongly connected. That may not be obvious, but they are. So when building confidence, there's two sets of things we're doing. We're bringing anxiety down and we're bringing motivation up. And Liz and Moe, in both presentations, proposed activities which achieve just that, which set out to achieve those objectives. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this simple because this is quite academic. However, there are three dimensions, I think, to building confidence that we can work with. So we can look at the cultural and the social factors in teaching. Liz pointed out that in some cultures, it's more difficult to persuade people just to speak. In some cultures, it's not polite to give an opinion, for example. In some cultures, it's not okay to interrupt or to seem too confident. By contrast, other cultures expect you to have strong opinions. If you watch American political debate, you'll see everybody has strong opinions. Not having a strong opinion is strange and makes you seem untrustworthy. You're expected to have strong opinions, which for other people outside that culture seems strange. But there are cultural and social factors definitely to confidence. Definitely there are. Most teachers here, I imagine, are working with students from one culture, perhaps, maybe from one national culture. But let's not forget, Indonesia is a very, very multicultural society. There are differences actually between how different groups in Indonesia might interpret the classroom. My own experience of teaching in Indonesia was often young people from middle-class wealthy homes saw speaking English, going to university overseas as realistic goals. Younger people not from those backgrounds maybe didn't see that as a realistic goal and needed much more pushing and convincing that they could aim high. I have taught in Myanmar, but I'm not an expert on this issue in Myanmar, I'll be honest. But I suspect in Myanmar, there are similar differences between different parts of society. So there are still, and indeed in Thailand too. So there are certainly cultural and social factors around confidence in speaking to address. both Liz and Mo suggested ideas which reduce the gap between the teacher status and the student status, which might help to build that confidence, which might help make speaking fluently seem more achievable, more realistic. And also, especially in 2021, when everybody has a smartphone, the option to become a YouTube star or a TikTok star is actually a realistic goal for anybody, whatever their background. That's actually very good for addressing these cultural barriers. It makes it easier to build motivation. And it also encourages young people to think about their overall presentation in language, how they come across overall. So they're not so worried about little mistakes in grammar, little mistakes. The question is, are they communicating their message, yes or no? And if yes, successfully, then that will have a positive feedback cycle. I will put that in the chat, a positive feedback cycle, because there is a feeling of, yes, I have achieved. This builds the confidence again. So they try again and they achieve again. And the confidence grows naturally with it because they're receiving positive feedback each time. It creates a cycle of positive feedback. So the cultural and social factors are definitely important here. Also here, both Mo and Liz talked about correction. Different cultures may view correction differently. Some people feel very ashamed if they're corrected directly. Other people don't notice if they're challenged directly. If someone is very confident in their position and someone corrects them, it's okay. If someone is already very vulnerable and someone corrects them, this can feel like being shut down, and it creates the opposite of a positive cycle. It creates a negative cycle. Hence why you're correct. Correction must be used with care. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've talked a bit about the cultural and social factors. Let's look actually at the psychological factors. Anxiety, feeling nervous, feeling stressed, feeling anxious. This is basically a psychological thing. This is to do with what's happening in here and how the body is reacting. When we feel nervous, there are physical changes. Your mouth might become dry, your hands might start sweating, your heart rate might start getting faster. These physical changes are real. So saying to somebody, don't be anxious, maybe doesn't change anything because they are. The psychology of this is very real and it connects to our physical body. How then do we address this? So I talked before about the positive cycle that can come from successful performance, feel more confident next time, another successful performance, and it keeps rising. This is extremely important in addressing anxiety too. Many students will avoid speaking English because they don't like the feeling of anxiety. Unfortunately, this only makes it worse. All of the evidence from psychology shows this. The only way to challenge anxiety is, I'll give it the psychological name, I think I've got this correct, repeated exposure. Repeated exposure. They just have to do it again and again and again until it feels normal. So how can we make this easier? Both Mo and Liz suggested some positive ideas here. Recycling language. Recycling language, teaching the language first and repeating language we're already familiar with. This reduces the burden on the learner. It reduces the overall volume of information that the brain is processing. It brings that level down. because it's familiar language. Therefore, the anxiety comes down with it. Preparation time is so, so important. Even if I'm talking to a native speaker, for example, if I asked another native English speaker, what's your favorite film? Answer me now. They may not have an answer ready. If you asked me that question, I don't think I could answer immediately. I would need some time to think about that too. That thinking time frames, we mentioned it before about frames, and also sentence stems, offering frames and sentence stems, short chunks of language that you can start things with. My favorite book is, my favorite film is, something I enjoy is, these are frames or sentence stems. Providing those makes everything so much easier. All of this helps to reduce that anxiety. We've looked at the social and the cultural dimensions, and we've also looked at the psychological dimension of confidence. Also want to look now at pedagogical dimensions of confidence, the pedagogical dimension, the teaching dimension. We don't often talk about how speaking is made up of different micro skills. Again, I'll include this word here, it's important. There are micro skills in speaking. If I say to you, what does speaking fluently mean? Probably you have a good idea in your mind what speaking fluently is. I guess it means speaking confidently, quickly, naturally, without thinking too much. But actually, in order to speak fluently, there are lots of micro skills you need. You need the ability to recall vocabulary, use grammar maybe correctly, at least to the level that the other person can understand. You need to pronounce possibly difficult phonemes at a high enough speed and with an okay rhythm, without the rhythm getting unbalanced. You need to be able to organize your thinking in a way that the listener will also understand. You need to think about who the listener is, what they want from your conversation, what point are they looking for. Speaking fluently involves lots of different micro skills. Oh, you also need strategies for pausing, strategies for changing subject, strategies for acknowledging questions. There's actually a lot of micro skills in speaking fluently, a lot. At beginner level, at A1 level, A2 level, the use of sentence stems and frames is a really good way to get people past that first hurdle. Actually, a lot of frames that we use in day-to-day language are memorized. They are memorized expressions. So this is good, getting people using them, repeating them over and over until they become completely natural. And that helps to reduce the anxiety around developing micro skills in fluency. When building motivation for fluency, we also need to think of, I think it was Liz who said purposeful practice, the concept of purposeful practice. Learners want to feel that this is going to achieve something, that they are learning for a reason, that they can apply this in real world situations. They will be able to use their English to achieve real outcomes. Whether that's when they go to the station, they want to successfully buy a ticket and get the right ticket and not the wrong ticket. Or whether it's when they go to the beach and talk to tourists, they just want to make a friend. These are realistic goals. And they want to know that what they learn will support them in achieving realistic goals. This purposeful practice aimed at that is very important. there is a type of teaching of pedagogy called task-based learning, which is built around this rationale. I would encourage everyone to research task-based learning as a way to deliver this. I won't explain the whole of task-based learning now, it'll take too long, but please research task-based learning as a good model for building confidence, both for addressing anxiety and for promoting motivation. Task-based learning is usually used with intermediate learners, but actually can be used successfully even with beginners. I know because I've used it with absolute beginners before, absolute beginners with no language and no literacy, giving them tasks to achieve and showing that actually they can do them using the very limited resources they have. And that's everything from me then. I realize I've covered quite a lot of different issues there, but I hope I've introduced some useful pedagogical vocabulary to talk about or write about these issues and some ideas for where to research further. And once again, thank you to Liz and Moe for your great presentations and for giving us so much to think about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Yes, so those are all the pedagogical and psychological overview from Rich. And don't worry that I will put all that important terms, yeah, like the TBLT stuff, the task-based learning, and also the sentence stem that Rich will talk about at the WhatsApp group. And I will also put the websites, the list of websites that the speakers and also the participants share to us this evening, so you won't miss anything. Okay, so yeah, that's all for this evening actually. Now we are reaching the end of the sessions. It's time for us to have a virtual group picture. That's what we call it these days.